In a cold, faraway world, a battle is raging between evil and good. From the stars, they came here to Earth, caught in their struggle through the whole universe. Robotic warriors.
Receptor here. Welcome to Transformers for your listening pleasure. TFYLP for short. Join us and discuss the latest in Transformers fandom. And now, without further ado, here is Weird Wolf. Now, where did I put that chorus stop? Ratchet, can you take the chorus stop?
Only the strong will survive. Till all I want.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Transformers for Your Listening Pleasure, episode number 119, recorded Friday, August 29th, 2014. I am your host, Weird Wolf. Along with me this evening is Megamus.
Hello.
Plasticon.
How's it going, guys? It's only been a week.
Only a week. And Headmaster Don.
Hey, everybody.
And Brian Kilby, host of Radio Free Cybertron. Welcome to us tonight.
Google Plus hates me.
Google
Plus, you need to fix your crap. You need to fix it. Fix it now.
Imagine how I feel. Both my podcast bosses are on at the same time.
Trust me, it hates everyone.
It's like we could do it in stereo. You're fired. Get out the Mr. McMahon walk. But
Ed McMahon.
Not Ed McMahon, Vince McMahon.
It's Vince.
Oh, that's my bad. I'm Vince, sorry.
It's wrestling.
It's been ages.
No, it's wrestling.
Wrestling.
Back
when it was actually the WWF.
Yeah.
I
think when they got the F out, then it was just really it kind of went downhill after that. But
I haven't watched any wrestling since Sergeant Slaughter was wrestling. That's only because he was in G.I. Joe. So, okay.
Well, I was a huge fan, as a kid, and up until a few years ago, I followed pretty closely. I was actually involved in independent wrestling here in the state, and I've actually met a number of stars, and I've actually been in the ring. I've taken a few licks from the Monster Abyss before in the ring.
You took some licks.
That's awesome. On RFC Diecast, was actually trained by Stevie Richards.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. But yeah, I was a licensed guy here in the state. I mean, I wasn't an actual wrestler, but I did the sound and security and photography for the show, and I'd also help out with some of the trainees, and I got shown a few things. I had to take a few bumps, and right before a fundraiser show, we had the Monster Abyss and Wildcat Chris Harris, and it was right after Abyss had won the World Heavyweight Championship and in TNA, and he actually had the belt with him, and I was standing backstage, and we were getting ready for the match, and he comes up and puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, "Can you take a bump?" I look at him, I go, "I guess, depends," like that, and he says, "When the time comes, just go with the flow." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then he looks at the promoter and asks him and says, "Is he good?" And like that, and he goes, he kind of looks at me, he kind of tilts his head, and he says, "Yeah, I think he's good." And yeah, I got black hole slammed. But that was fun. That was fun. But enough of the wrestling thing.
Wrestling.
We're here to talk about plastic robots, Transformers.
Is that what we call these things now?
Yeah.
GoBots.
GoBots, yes. We're here to talk about GoBots.
Hey, now. I like GoBots. Don't start.
like them GoBots.
Okay, we're going to start talking about RoboForce. There we go.
I'm all about RoboForce.
I do want to state next week, on a related note, TFYLP, we're going to start a two-part series. Well, I guess you could call it a series. It's two parts. we're going to do 2 episodes, one next Friday and then the following Friday. We are going to tackle Yusha Brave. We're going to talk about the history of the lines and its relevance to Transformers, and a closer look at each one of the lines of Brave, and go a little bit in depth. I know I've collected a number of Braves. As a matter of fact, just over my shoulder on the bottom shelf, you can see 3 Braves right there. Actually 4, and you know, I've had my hands on a number of the molds, and I know Plasticon has got a few, Don's got a few, and we're also going to have a special guest next week. He's agreed to be on the show, and we're going to talk about Yusha Brave. So if you've ever had any questions about Brave and were afraid to ask, tune in next week, and we'll be talking about Brave. Also want to point out that we are starting a new second show coming up in the next week or so, TFYLP Newsstand, for anyone listening or wanting to listen to anything about the comics or anything in Transformers print. There's going to be a show hosted by Insane Galvatron, and I am Unicron, and I see my cat. Yeah, Massey's ghost is coming up here, but sidetracked. But yeah, TFYLP Newsstand coming in the next week or two. I know I Am Unicron has been out of town, and as soon as he gets back and is ready, we're going to kick that show off, and it'll be airing on this YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's going to be airing on Thursday nights, and then I will upload the audio version of it shortly thereafter, probably on Friday or Saturday. This show is going to stay where it's at, but anybody who's interested in comics and Transformers print, check out TFYLP Newsstand coming soon. So, guys, anything new happened this week? Anything jumping out that anybody wants to talk about real quick before we head into the discussion tonight? Don't everybody jump at once now. No.
Well, just not really. I mean,
well,
the only thing I can really see.
Well, I was going to say real quick. Let's just face it. There wasn't a multi-million-dollar comic sold this week. There wasn't real big, all-inspiring, never-before-seen, unproduced stuff this week. So, as opposed to last week, we're kind of in a low, I think.
Well, actually, wasn't there some pictures of Masterpiece, Wheeljack, and Bumblebee, some finalized pictures that popped
There we
up
go.
this week?
There we go.
Yeah,
the Masterpiece goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, we saw those, and we also seen a little closer look at the Star Saber that's coming out as well. So, I just find it funny that the Brainmaster's like the size of a Diaclone figure.
Yeah,
we were talking about figures, that.
Those things are only an inch high, so it's a very. I mean, this thing is smaller than most Headmasters.
Here you
go. You guys
there
have to expecting some gigantic robot. He's very little.
Here we go. People will love this. You ready? There you go. There's a Diaclone driver. Because this is a knockoff one, but it's still the same, and that's a quarter behind it.
Wow.
That tells you about how big they are. Wait a minute. Let me get that way. There we go. That was on the fly, so they were just sitting here. But anyway, yeah, how some of the stuff is smaller, and then, of course, the main bot, as you can see, I've got Star Saber, it's not Star Saber, right there behind me.
Oh, Victory Saber.
He's over there. Anyway, there. But, and they're making it Masterpiece size, so they're making some things bigger, and then making... I was kind of confused with the Brainmaster being the size of a Diaclone driver. That kind of threw me off.
Well, one of the things that kind of worries me about it is that it will run into the same kind of pitfalls. I don't know, Don, did you ever pick up Masterpiece King X Kaiser?
I've got the original version. I never got a chance to pick up the Masterpiece version at a reasonable price.
I did have it at one time, and it was nice. It was really nicely detailed, and I loved it. but it had some very, very big issues. And the one thing that was really an issue is that, okay, King X-Kaiser, for those of you who don't know, and you'll probably find out next week if you tune into the show, but X-Kaiser combined with a jet-like platform to become King X-Kaiser. And that was the motif in a lot of the Braves, is that you had a base robot form, and then kind of like a la Power Master Optimus Prime, the main center figure in the line could combine with another secondary figure and make a bigger one. Well, the Masterpiece King X-Kaiser, the regular X-Kaiser figure was maybe as big as Jeeper Creeper is here, tall. In vehicle form, and he was really tiny, and his joints, I mean, he was super articulated just like any other figure, but the problem is that he was so tiny, his joints, I mean, were just so fragile and so small. And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, if anyone's interested in that, Vangelis has a good review up of the Masterpiece X-Kaiser, and he shows off the issues with that small figure.
Yeah.
So, that could help, in some cases.
I was about to say that, because he actually goes just as far as not just doing the X-Kaiser, just the truck with the small...
And you're out of here.
He's out of here.
Yay, DSL.
Just love the live stuff, I mean, you gotta love that. But and he's frozen mid screen. It's like he's holding himself in place, and there he goes.
He said, "To hell with you. You're making fun of me. I'm out of here."
Yeah, but anyway, the little X-Kaiser guy, I mean, he's super articulated, super detailed. He's really, really nice. But the big problem with him is that he's so fragile and breaks so easily. Mine,
does anyone
one of the
have
legs,
one of those?
I did, but I sold it.
I'd like to see what that one is.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. I may have a picture handy if you guys, Plasticon, if you want to continue.
What I was going to say is Vangelis actually does a review of the car with the trailer, and that all combines together to make the one robot. And like we were saying, the X-Kaiser part's the smallest part, which is the car that transforms into the robot.
Yeah.
That part combines with the trailer to make a robot. But then there's a jet portion that he was talking about. That's a separate review that he does, but that combines with it too, like battle armor, kind of like God Bomber with God Jedi.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the way you can kind of relate it that way. But he's absolutely right. Those joints are very, very, very small. So my only issue is I want to know, how is that thing going to transform into the head portion for the smaller Star Saber mode without it completely falling apart?
Well, I'm just wondering if maybe the Star Saber head, the faceplate, is in the chest, and when the figure goes up, it pushes a separate head up, so that way you don't actually have the Diaclone size pilot. You don't have Saber becoming the head, but he activates the feature where the head fills in the face, or that way. So it could be that there's actually a different head, so you get the same effect. You just don't have the part becoming the head like that.
Exactly, and I'm hoping that they're going to make him strong enough that he's not going to fall apart, because anybody that's ever owned Diaclone drivers, they did have their issues. They're very, very, very fragile and brittle. You really don't want to move them around too much, because you can literally snap a leg or an arm off if you don't move
So
it
it sounds like Masterpiece Rodimus, basically.
That's what I'm worried about, Brian. Is it being another Masterpiece Rodimus?
So basically, if what Don's saying is true, I mean, there doesn't have to be any stress on the Brainmaster at all. It basically goes into a little hole, and the switch basically drives like whatever, I don't know, cylinder or whatever it's actually in, if it actually forces up the actual face. Basically.
Yeah.
I don't. Hopefully, Takara's learned from past mistakes.
Well, I don't know if you guys can see my screen share here. This is King X-Kaiser, Masterpiece King X-Kaiser. This was the one that I owned, and if you can see my my mouse here, the chest compartment here, this opened up entirely, and the tiny X-Kaiser figure now. Give you a size of scale, Masterpiece King X-Kaiser in combined form was roughly the size of MP10, I believe, as a good comparison.
I think he was slightly taller, but not by much.
Not by much. I mean, that's the closest thing I can think of. But he's about the size of MP10. Now, if you can imagine, if you could open up MP10's chest and fit a smaller robot inside that chest, well, that's what you could do with King X-Kaiser here, and the larger robot or the smaller robot actually fit inside the chest, and then the legs kind of went down into the upper thigh area of the combined form. Well, the problem was with this design is that these two shin flaps that covered up the small robot would actually crush the robot inside if it was put in there improperly, and it did not fit very well. And that's one of the things I'm kind of worried about with the Masterpiece Star Saber, is that Brainmaster, because of its small size, it'll be small, fragile, and weak, and that the gimmick may actually break the figure just doing what you're supposed to be doing with it.
I'm just afraid, like Rodimus, it's all going to come down to tolerances, and with the manufacturing process, you can have tolerances across the board, so no one batch of figures could even be the same. Because people were reporting problems with Rodimus across the board, like Blitzwing. No one fix for Blitzwing work on all of them. So yeah, here's hoping they did learn.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those things that it's speculation. I'm not sitting here saying that Masterpiece Star Saber is going to be cheap, small, and a piece of crap, but at the same time I have my reservations, because King X-Kaiser was one of Takara's first Masterpiece excursions. I think it came out around the same time or slightly thereafter of MP01. So, and they should have really saw through this with it being a masterpiece, but they didn't, and it kind of worries me that they may do that again, especially seeing what issues like Masterpiece Rodimus had, with those little tiny panels. My confidence is not very high right now, put it that way.
Yeah, but just have to wait and see.
Yeah, a little wait and see. Well, did Brett dropped off, didn't he?
I don't know where he went.
Anyway.
But, I mean, that's honestly in the news. I think that's all we really had. Everybody knows what's coming with the Bumblebee. We got the Spike and the transforming suit, which is kind of cool. That exosuit's kind of cool. I've been a big fan of the exosuit. I always wanted a toy of it. So I think this is a great way to acquire one, although I would love to see somebody try to take a shot at doing a G11 to be more in scale with Generation 1.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing about Bumblebee that I'm looking forward to is if they can pull Bumblebee off as a mini bot, and the structurally sound. Not only does that open up the way for other mini bots in that scale being feasible, but it also opens up the chance for combiner limbs as well.
I think we're a long way off in combiner limbs and master.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I mean, I think it could be a good first step to see if something that size can be structurally sound enough.
I'd love to see that, but I mean, we haven't seen like a Galvatron yet, so
yeah.
Well, one other thing before we move on to our discussion topic of the night, I've just got to say it. Has anybody picked up this piece of crap yet?
I did, and it's back for sale. If anyone needs one.
Go ahead.
What is it?
Lockdown.
It's Age of Extinction Lockdown.
That's all you have to say. Age of Extinction.
Yeah.
Nope. None.
Well,
Nada.
I went into the local Walmart the other night, the other morning, right after I got off from work. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I needed to get some milk because, honey needed some milk. And I walked by the pallet, and there was one laying on top of the pallet, and I got it. And they rang up $9.97. So I'm like, hey, this is great. I'd found it one other time, and it was like $18 at a Toys R Us Express. And I wasn't about to pay that much for a deluxe. So, $9.97. I'm like, hey, I'll buy it on this, and I got it simply because I wanted a Lamborghini Reventon. I'm a big fan of Lamborghinis, but this guy here is a floppy mess. His panels doesn't line up. He is not worth it, in my opinion.
He looks terrible, but I'll probably pick it up when I see it.
Yeah, he is terrible. I mean, he's got panel arms. Those like the side of the doors on the back side are his hands, and they're just terrible.
Yeah, it's 2014. Having hands molded into the side of the car seems like that could be something we could get rid of.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I really don't see the toy line for the movieverse doing very well. It seems that everybody's on the, everybody wants
pretty
generations.
good, man. I'm in the middle of a podcast. It's the TFYLP one. Hey, listen, are you going to be
look,
tomorrow morning?
He's promoting the show. He's doing it live.
Yeah, I know.
Real quick, since we're talking about
ahead.
toys, I was going to say one thing real quick. I was going to do a review of this guy right here.
Ooh.
And the Takara one.
Review the box, because that seems to be the most interesting point of that.
Here's what I'm going to say, okay? You get the box, which, okay, here we go. It's got a nice little bag. It's got this little sleevey thing, and, that's awesome. Then it's got this little pamphlet.
Masterpiece Prowl, if you're listening. Yeah.
Masterpiece Prowl, sorry. Hasbro version. And then it comes in this nice big box with this clamshell, and there he is.
So much empty space is totally unnecessary.
It gets better. It gets better. And everyone told me about this, but I'm like, I gotta see for myself, because that can't be right. It was. And here he is, and I'm here to tell you. I'm gonna open it up, and I'm gonna tell you. I was gonna do a review of the differences between this one and the Takara one, and I can do it in one little shot. See the stamping?
Yeah.
The quality control stamping?
Yeah.
That's it.
Black on white.
That's it. Everyone's paying $100 for this damn thing, where the Takara one, I still think you can get online for cheaper. It's the same toy. There's no paint apps, nothing extra. It's the same.
You could probably get 3 of the KOs for that too.
It's a joke. I can't remember how much this was.
It was about
$69.99.
Was it $69? I thought it was either $59 or $69. Whatever it is, at Hasbro, what is it, toyshop.com, whatever it is. That's where I got it from. Toystore.com, yeah.
Well, that's odd, because usually they don't carry exclusives like Toys R Us exclusives.
Yeah, or was it TFW? No. It was ToysRUs.com. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got it from Toys R Us, so you can get on there. They're probably sold out. But anyway, if anyone wants this for that price, let us know. That'll be our show, exclusive offer, whatever you want to call it. I was going to do it, like I said, for the review, but I wasn't going to waste even a minute to say that's the difference.
Big deal.
That is the difference.
Yeah. Weird Wolf, you'll appreciate this. Somewhere in Korea, the president of Sonocon looked at that and said, "That's the way you do packaging."
Yeah.
The Korean stuff is just like that. Huge boxes, lots of air.
Mm-hmm.
So, the easiest way is whoever's on the our Facebook, message me. The first person gets it for what I paid for. Whatever it is to ship it, I don't care. I'm not out to make money. I actually bought this to do the review, and I'm very sad. I'm sad. So thought I'd throw that out there. Don't waste your money. Buy the cheaper of the two.
Megamus has sad face.
I have sad face.
Well, you guys just
As I've always said, you do your homework and you save your money. Don't buy it. It's no different. Buy the cheaper. If you can get one cheaper together, that's the one you want. They're the same toy.
Yeah. Here's the weird thing.
Well, this is the thing to let you guys know. A lot of you guys out there that are collecting the Masterpiece, and some of you guys are like, I still can't give that kind of amount of money. Honestly, there's those quality KOs that came out. Go check out Rocket Punch Army on YouTube. Chachi Power's done reviews and comparisons of every single solitary version that's came out, including MP10. He's done every single one that's came out. Go check those out and see what you guys think. Honestly, in my opinion, I honestly would probably end up buying the KO versus the other ones because the quality is almost spot on to the point you really can't tell.
Well, now here's the odd thing in my situation, in my area.
Go ahead, John.
Go for it.
Yeah, is I've only got 2 Toys R Us's local to me, and one of them is the smallest one in the chain. Brian saw it when he was up here, and he was not impressed with my Toys R Us.
It looks just like my Toys R Us, so I mean I don't get it. Mine must be the second smallest.
Yeah. Toys R Us Express size or something?
No, just it's the smallest standalone building in the chain.
Oh wow!
And but I have not seen but 2 Sunstorms, and I've seen more Prowls than Sunstorms. Heck, I bought the only one of the 2 Sunstorms I have seen come through that store, and I figured they'd be shelf-warming everywhere, and I'm seeing Prowls, 4 deep on the shelf, but no Sunstorm since the first shipment.
They probably just don't have the shelf space for large toys.
Well, they got risers though, and they're not, and there's nothing on the risers either. So it's just kind of odd that we're seeing more Prowls than Sunstorm.
Hey Don, I haven't been able to find a Year of the Horse Starscream. Can you help me out with that?
Oh my God! Here was something else I wanted to show you.
Yeah.
Look at this. And for anyone that's bought Masterpiece, usually the inserts and everything, especially from Takara, are really tight. Everything. I can't believe this. Look at this. There is the insert. You can see it right here, and as you can see over here, it's all the way pushed over. And look at this.
Empty space.
Look at this. Look.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much if they had made a box.
Is this a bag of Doritos or a box?
Exactly. I do. I'm buying some Doritos with a whole bunch of air.
Well, this is kind of like what's happening with Age of Extinction. The trade dress for Age of Extinction is too similar across the lines, and it's hard to find the regular deluxes versus the kid deluxes. With this, they're trying to keep a uniform packaging, but how much money could they have saved and or dropped the price on Prowl by having a more accurate packaging size? Yeah, that's what you have to ask yourself too.
Yeah, I hate when I buy a toy and it's like there's so much airspace around the damn toy that it's like they wasted so much money on this. It's like anybody that's bought a Fortress Maximus. As big as that robot is, it literally has like enough space for the robot to be fully protected. And anybody that's ever bought the Metroplex, I think they did okay with the packaging, but I think they could have done better.
Whoa.
There's a lot of
You're talking about the Metroplex with the arm that was like sitting off to the side like this?
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
They could have done much better with that package.
Absolutely. I opened that thing up and I looked at it and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I bought it when it first came out. How much was it when it first came out? Like 110? Something like that?
Yeah.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I'm not going to go on my spiel on that.
Well,
everyone knows I sent it back.
I
the
will say
fact was, you're correct. They could have packaged it way better.
Well, I'm also going to say this, and this is another thing that kind of irked me. Because sometimes I can't acquire the full-on G1, so I went and bought that reissue Predaking that just came out that was recent, the Generation 1 one. Phenomenal toy. Nothing wrong with the toy whatsoever. The problem was the packaging. They literally had just a blister card kind of back that it was basically strapped to, and that was put onto a piece of cardboard and then shoved into this nice looking box. Granted, it holds the whole toy together, but it comes fully assembled inside the box. I don't see why they couldn't have just went through and made like separate compartments, because that box was fully big enough to put separate compartments to put the robots in separately. To me, I think this is laziness on Hasbro's half of this crappy packaging we're getting.
Yeah.
They need
for a box that big, for a box that big, the compartments may have added an extra a penny or two, and for them that could have been too much considering what they already had invested. I mean, we'll never know. But
the big problem is being a collector. Some purist collectors out there want pristine boxes. They want something they can take out and then put it back in. You can't put this back in the packaging. Once you cut those zip ties, it's loose. You can't do anything with it. It's just like the Metroplex. Can't do anything with it. So, I mean, honestly, I would love to see a third party start jumping on building custom boxes for some of this garbage they're trying to give us.
Which is weird because they've been doing it for G.I. Joe for 20 years. I mean, you can, for any 12-inch G.I. Joe that you may collect, you can get a reproduction box for it. You've been able to do that for the last 15 to 20 years.
But it's not like G.I. Joe fans have anything else to spend their money on, though, Don.
Sadly, that's
snap.
Well, they do have stuff now, but they do have nice stuff in Toys R Us's now for a short period of time.
For how long? Yes.
For about 2 years, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't want to step on G.I. Joe, because G.I. Joe is still something that holds true to me, and we've said this time and time again. And, I probably don't even need to bring it back up, but G.I. Joe Mask crossover. Why hasn't it happened? Get off your ass. There you go.
Well, maybe with the success of the G.I. Joe Transformers comic being universally praised, maybe there's something in there in that for down the line.
Who knows?
I'm just hoping so, because it's cool that they try to cross it over with zombies, and honestly, I think they're kind of onto something there if they actually continued with that. But honestly, what are you gonna do? You make a zombie killing mobile or something like that, something crazy, and then have them have jets or something? It'd be kind of
Zombie Force 2000.
Right.
Well, I believe it's time that we need to get on to our discussion topic tonight.
That's right. We have a topic, don't we?
Yes, we do. It will probably be a rather long one, but we'll try not to go too long. But a few weeks back, I asked listeners for some suggestions for something they would like to hear on TFYLP, and one of the things that was suggested at first, whenever I read it, and then he told me about it, I was like, I'm not quite sure. I don't understand how we do that. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, hey, this could be a really good topic because we could go really far back, and Transformers fans on the internet. Now, there's a few of us that remember the old days. I'm not one of them, admittedly. Before
back in my day.
Yeah. back in the day, a lot of the communication between fans and collectors was done via snail mail, and it was very inefficient, and it just really it's just difficult to do, and I don't know that much about it, but from what I hear, whenever the internet came along, it just opened a lot of people's eyes. Does anybody here remember those days? Was anybody a part of that?
So Transmasters was the Transformers fan club that started back in the 80s. I was not a member. Rob Springer, though, from RFC was. But, yeah, I mean, that literally through the mail. Basically, by the time people started getting email, things sort of sped up because people were able to find each other through BBSs and stuff. But, yeah, my God, I can't imagine waiting for mail from somebody across the globe to talk about Transformers. It's just
my question is, how did it work? I mean, did you was it like a message board? It's like I would hate to get a letter that says, "Did you see that new G2 figure on the shelf? The colors on it, laws."
I'm sure it was probably. I think
people had a bigger attention span back then. That was the biggest thing. As people would literally write an entire letter, and 90% of the time they'd send photos with that stuff. So it was like having pen pals. Does anybody here remember having a pen pal? I mean, come on.
No.
Yeah.
Losers. I remember.
I do. I remember.
I think my pen pal is my mom just having pity on me, so she would just actually mail a letter.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just had real flesh, interaction, face-to-face friends. I mean, sorry, I guess I'm old-fashioned.
Well, I actually learned about...
And that's what she said.
Only about the flesh part.
Yeah.
Let's let Don talk.
Now, I actually learned about BotCon through Lee's action figure and toy review.
So did I.
Yeah.
So did I.
Because I had sent in a question if they had ever made an RC toy, and as a matter of fact, they
didn't know.
This was 1996. I'm saying, did they make a prototype or something along those lines?
You learned about BotCon? You learned about BotCon before '96, Don.
Well, I'm sorry, 94. I'm sorry, 94.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But no, wait a minute, real quick. But in '99, they had an ad for 2000, and that was the first time that I saw it. It's just funny, but it was Lee's action figure and toy review that had just had an article, and I was like, huh, that's fairly close. I'll go to that. Yeah. And that's what started it for me.
It all went downhill.
And it all went downhill from there. As you can see, a room of all downhill. It did.
He hasn't removed his hat yet. You can see how it's getting to him.
So
it's all cybernetics under there. It's just robot pieces.
How do I say it?
He suffered from GPS.
I know it's on the hat, but I got more hair than more than half the people on the cast. So it ain't that.
Hey, I've been losing my hair since I was in my early 20s. I looked like Don when I was like 23, unfortunately.
So that's why you're using
Whoa!
right?
Thanks for the love.
Zing!
Yeah, because I asked about RC. They gave an incorrect answer, and John Hartman wrote in as a correction, and he wound up asking them for my address from the letter I published, and he sent me a flyer for the first BotCon. So this started, in '84, but if it hadn't been for that one letter, I wouldn't have known about BotCon until probably much later.
Well, the thing is that the internet happened. This thing that had been around for years, that was used by banks and business institutions to communicate with each other, opened up more to the public. And I don't know about you, my first modem that I had was it was measured in baud. It was one of those that you literally had to set the phone receiver down on it and dial out. And I never used it that much, especially for Transformers, because I didn't even get back into Transformers as an adult until 1999. And the first Transformers message board, I guess you could say, was alt.toys and Transformers. And that started in, I believe, September of 1993.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and I was about 4 months out of high school at that time, and I
I was
was
23 years old.
yeah, I was fresh. Okay, little sign language going on here, but
Damn it,
but
Ron.
yeah, I was fresh.
Because I was well out of high school, so shut up.
I was a fresh 18-year-old, and yeah, I had college on my mind and girls and
No. He had more than college on his mind.
yeah,
God dang it, you were a nerd.
yeah. Okay, but anyway,
Nerd!
I had let's wrangle. I had the college on my mind, and Transformers just wasn't there for me. But whenever I got back into Transformers in '99, I got to messing around, and by this time I was back on the internet. I'd been on the internet since '96. Was when the first time I actually connected on a regular basis via a 14.4K modem with my first home computer that I owned. Now the one that I actually
How
had
many
to
gigs
set,
of RAM did it have?
the hard drive was the hard drive was 700 megabytes.
Yes!
It was a Macintosh Performa 6116 CD. I'll never forget that thing. Loved
The
it.
best thing in the world is you could sit at home and play Oregon Trail.
Yeah, I actually had it on there.
Yeah.
But
God, I swear I feel sad for you two.
yeah,
Oh my God.
Well, my first computer was an
Jeez.
IBM that I still have that ran Windows 3.1.
well, my dad had a
Commodore
Commodore
64,
64.
baby.
Yeah, my dad had a Commodore 64, and that's the one that we had a telephone receiver modem, and it was just so slow, and to do anything on it, it was just impossible. But whenever I finally got back into Transformers and I got interested in them again, my first thought, now that I'd been on the internet for some 3 years, was I wonder if there's any more stuff about this, because my mom had found my original collection, and if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you would know that story. Go back and check out some of the archives if you want to look for it. You have to hunt for it, because I don't remember what episode it was on. But anyway,
He slaps us that.
yeah. But
Old timers is kicking in.
yes, old timers is kicking in. But I got back into them, and I found a website called which one was the first one I went to? It was Bot Talk. And that was my first exposure. Yeah, I do feel sorry for that. And truth be told, that is the only Transformers website, yes, I have been banned from, or I was banned there. I don't know why. I never accosted anybody on there, never argued with anybody. I asked a question, and then the next day I went back to log in, and it wouldn't let me in. And yeah, but yeah, I was posting on bigbot.com on Bot Talk for probably about a year, and at that time I had heard of alt.toys.transformers, and it was in '99 it was on its way out, and
Yeah, it's still around though.
yeah. Actually, I've got it pulled up right now. Let me screen share. It's
For the most part, the same people that are there now are the people that were there in 1999. No joke.
Yeah.
Except for me, I'm not there.
Yeah. I've got it pulled up right now. It's a part of Google Groups now, but it's still called alt.toys.transformers. It's a pub. Go ahead.
So Alt Toys Transformers is a Usenet group. So it's actually a very old form of the internet. It's not just part of Google Groups or what was before Deja News, which was bought out by Google. It exists on servers basically at every ISP around the world. So it's not just Google Group. So it's not just Google. It's It's not the World Wide Web. It's not any other. It's its own form of the internet. It's a really old form of the internet going back to the 70s.
Wow. I'm not even really familiar with how it works. I remember being a lurker on this, and I would go there and check a few things out. And ironically enough, alt.toys.transformers is where I first learned of car robots. That was the very first words that I'd read. I'll get it out here in a moment. Read about car robots and Speedbreaker and Fire Convoy was on this message board of sorts, or this use group, and I really didn't see any pictures until later on Bot Talk. But any of you guys have any experiences or anecdotes about using alt.toys.transformers and any history that you know of it?
Well, I remember when the Cryotech recolor of Transmetal 2 Megatron came out, or was first shown. And
everyone assumed that it was a Photoshop.
Everyone, and there were flame wars and pages of people debating just.
Yeah, I mean, so I started out on Alt Toys Transformers back in '97, '98. I actually first learned about Alt Toys Transformers through, of all places, Toy Fair magazine. So there was an article that was written about Transformers in an issue of Toy Fair, and they actually sourced all of the material. Of course, there was no Wikipedia or TFWiki at the time. And they sourced the material from Alt Toys Transformers, so I said, heck, I can access this crap. Let me go look at it. And funny enough, all the people that I knew from reading their websites, like my friend Anthony Brucali, who now does TFP.info, I heard other names like, back then it was Walkerton, who's now Walkie, and all these other people, they posted there. They thought it was the coolest thing. So, of course, I lurked for like 3 minutes, and then I became one of those guys who just basically blew his load and just started gushing about Transformers, and I said some of the most uninformed junk. So basically I sat around for about 2 weeks and lurked again and changed my screen name, and then pretty much I was a regular there for like 4 or 5 years. Tens of thousands of posts later, I kind of gave it up. But I still check it every couple of years, yeah.
I never could get past the... since Bot Talk was my first exposure to message board forums, and I got used to that, and it was a few months after I started at Bot Talk that I discovered the Alt Toys, and or ATT as a lot of people refer to it nowadays. So if you hear about it or read about it on message boards, ATT is the Alt Toys Transformers. I just couldn't get by the way it looked and the way you replied. I just didn't care for it. But I would still go there, like I said, and lurk and pick some news and read people's opinions on things. It was more of a Reader's Digest for me than was actual posting experience. But Megamus, did you try ATT at all? Did you ever do it? You ever lurk, read, what?
I am very happy to say that was before my time.
Wow.
You're older than me.
You don't have to sound so glad about it.
Well, usually it's like, no, I'm on the So no, I didn't get into the frame of things until '99.
Wow.
So,
that's whenever I got in. I mean,
I didn't know what that intranet was. I was doing electronic mail and stuff like that for my job. That was about it.
Well, you started with RID, so you started at a good point in history.
Except that I hate RID.
Thank you.
That's
whoa! I have a fellow TF fan that doesn't like RID.
Yes.
You can't do it because you don't have the video going, but I'm going to give you a fist bump right there, and you hit me back right there. There you go. Couldn't stand it. Sorry.
Yeah, Brian and I have some interesting discussions on the merits of fire conflict.
Power Rangers crap.
Then you're certainly not going to like Brave.
Well, I can tell you this much. There's none here. No Brave.
And your collection is sorrier for it.
Yes.
I'll just put this out to the listeners out there. I'm going to put this out to the listeners, all right?
That came out already.
Wait a minute, just because he said it. All right, there you go. See if you can see here, okay? In this collection, let me get my head here. Up there, down there, is sorry.
A bunch of dolls.
Those are my Migos.
Dolls.
Dolls.
I fucking love Migos.
Yeah, yeah. He took the ponies out of the shop before he was trying to move the camera.
Wait a minute. There you go. There you go. I bet it won't. Can you even get over that way? There you go. Oh, look at that.
Dolls.
Oh, dude.
Cool dolls, but dolls.
Love me my hot toys.
Do you get them out and brush their hair?
They don't have hair. They had hair maybe, but they don't. You obviously are an anti-hot toyist.
No, we just can't afford them.
Your Migos, do you get them out and comb their hair and dress them up? And
obviously, you don't know that. Migos don't have hair also. You know, you're batting 1,000. They both have something in common with you.
Well, I will say this, Megamus. If I could have afforded the Keaton and Nicholson Joker pair, I would have had them. But
They're right there.
I know, I hate you.
Well, and also, out of all the Batmobiles, that's the one I'm going for.
The real one?
The 89 Batmobile looks the best. So, that's a different topic, you know. 89 Batmobile.
Brett's going to be cruising down the road. Brett's going to be cruising down the road in the real.
I'm telling you. Anyway, yes, I am so sorry that my collection is so worse for wear for not having Brave.
Yeah. It does. It sucks. But anyway, we digress. Now, Brian, you said that your first exposure was ATT your first exposure, or
actually no. My first exposure was when I got to school. I didn't have a computer at home until I was like 20. So when I got to school and had access to the internet, I had Yahoo, and one of the first things I remember searching for was Transformers. The first site that I can remember visiting was called the Transformers Collector. It was on GeoCities. And I loved that site. I mean, it didn't have a lot of information, but it had information. I loved information. So there was information about things like G1, G2 stuff that I didn't know, information about Machine Wars and Beast Wars. And at that point, I'd never watched Beast Wars, so it was all new to me. It's kind of funny. I was actually citing the Transformers Collector as one of my influences on RFC like a year ago or so, and the guy who actually did that, it was a listener. And since then, he and I have connected, and we're now friends on Facebook. He's a great dude.
Awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was great. But actually, stepping back for a minute, though, All Toys Transformers originated from the quote-unquote mailing list. There was actually a big Transformers mailing list that existed. And there are people that were part of that are still part of the online fandom today, like Phil Zeman, who's the proprietor of ASM Magazine, and James Hooks, who doesn't do as much as he used to. But there are quite a few people who did that. And in parallel to that, there are things going on like mushes. I've never mushed at all, but Don has.
Yes, I have.
So what was mushing, Don?
Oh, mushing is basically multi-shared user hallucination is one of the ways you can break down an acronym for it.
That sounds terrible.
Basically, it's just a text-based format. You create a character. Like I was Downshift, the Omnibot at the original TF1, which was one of the first Transformer mushes, and I was the original Spike on TF 2005. You're in a setting like Metroplex. The people that create the mush give you, they create events happening in the world. You respond to it. I think when I was at TF 2005, Optimus Prime came back 4 times in different ways. So that again, that was again people that got together on the ATT who say they liked the third season of them or they liked post movie, whatever the case was, and they would create the mushes and you would just create characters but there were still rules you had to follow. It just wasn't a free for all.
Yeah.
You had rules and structure you had to follow, or you got banned or booted.
There was also IRC, Internet Relay Chat, and I ended up spending most of my time there. I learned about, through Alt Voice Transformers, I learned about Dalnet, which there's a channel called Cybertron on, but it was too many people actually talking about Transformers. So I ended up finding Ouija, and which pretty much birthed things like the TFWiki and stuff like that. I've been involved with that group since.
Hey, Jason, should we part it to the right or the left?
For you listeners that are listening to the downloadable version of this, Brett now has his Bane doll out, and he is combing its bald head with a actual brush.
I think Duran's getting jealous. You better put that thing away.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, real quick. Hey, Duran, this is a brush, a hair brush. In case you forgot.
A Shiga brush.
That was the worst Connery ever.
And the whole world just heard it.
You know what the worst thing is? I had to take him down from his little... Oh, my God. I did it just for you. Just for you.
I appreciate that.
And it was so worth it.
I truly do. But, Plasticon, what was your first exposure to Transformers fandom on the internet?
Bye. Here we go.
I would say my first exposure, honestly, was pretty much once I got out of the military. In 2005, I joined the military, and I was so busy that I didn't have time to actually do anything online with like the communities at all. And it was around 2011 when I actually started getting involved with the communities, mainly because, I mean, I did have MySpace at the time, and I did post stuff on there, and I had some people talk about stuff, and that's way back in the day. But then whenever the whole Facebook thing started off, I kind of jumped on that boat and followed it, and it's brought me a lot of people. Like I had no idea there was such a large fandom for these toys, because when RID came out, I met some people in the store, and talked a little bit. I went to a few conventions every now and then, like small little local ones, but there wasn't really a large fandom around me and around the area until I found out that this thing was just huge. And I kind of felt at home finally, and I was like, this is cool. And then,
But as far as online interactivity with fans, you're still kind of a recent bloomer then.
Right. Honestly, it's mainly because my whole active lifestyle trying to get into the film business and stuff like that has taught me a lot about how you have to market yourself and get yourself out there and be able to talk to several people and stuff like that. And the fandom has actually been a great segue into that, and it's taught me a lot of stuff. And it's a developing thing. I mean, I never had Twitter. I never had any of this like social media stuff besides like MySpace. But years back in like 1997, I don't know if any of you guys remember Refugees Arcadia.
No.
It was a chat thing that you could actually do. You could actually set up like your own like profile thing. It was almost like making everything in HTML. It was crazy. That's the way I actually learned HTML. And I don't know if any of you guys were around that time to actually know anything about that and talk to my viewers, but it was really, really interesting back then, and I didn't really see very many Transformer fans back then, and more people were into like Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars and stuff like that. It's just I don't know. I guess the nerd community wasn't like really prevalent at the time because it was a different time, guys. I mean, we all got picked on when we were kids. Now it's
it's actually chic. It's actually chic to be a nerd.
Right, and now it's a trendy thing. It's cool. It's hip. But back then, if you were a nerd, you got picked on, and you were pretty much the odd man out. I mean, myself, I was a nerd, but I didn't really like walk around and
Flaunt it.
flaunt it like a lot of people did, you know. So I kind of fit in with everybody as best I could. And then my nerdy side started coming out during junior high because I was a drama kid. And then, you know, they saw that I was interested in cameras, and I collected action figures. Some of them thought that was weird, you know, being, you know, that age. Some people were like, you still play with toys? Whatever. I don't care what age you are, you all like Legos. Get over it.
Yeah.
But,
Now,
yeah, I mean,
Don. Go ahead.
I mean, that was pretty much my extent, like, on the internet when it came to, like, the fandom. And now, like I said, it's been continuously growing. I got stuff on, you know, you name it, every social media I could possibly do now. So.
Yeah. Now, Don, what are some of your earliest memories on the net, and do you have any anecdotes you want to share about your early years on the Transformers fandom?
Well, I remember my source of news originally was bigbot.com, which
that was the biggest one out there at that time.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and I remember going there, and I learned later on that basically his news, a lot of his news was uncredited from other places. But that was
still news. Oh no, sorry.
Renaud, yeah. That's not a name I like to hear.
But that's where I went and saw the most Transformer news of any one place. And I went there. I was on ATT. I was also on the ATT-CM, which is Classics Moderated, which kept out a lot of the flame, which tried to keep out a lot of the flame wars and the spam. But there wasn't.
There was an exodus from alt toys Transformers because those people took their ball and went home. But you know.
Yeah. It's just a lot of that is gone from my memory because, you know, I segued into Trans Fandom. That was one of the sites that I went to originally because it seemed like it was a lot low key. Everybody seemed like they were, you know, pretty nice. There wasn't a lot of flame wars going on. This was before the split, so you had all the stuff from the one side that was the music and the video and all this stuff. Back when dial-up wasn't a laughing matter, that's what we all had. So it's just, you know, I remember enjoying myself, meeting all these people I still know to this day. But we will never be able to go back to that sense of simpler because the technology won't let it be simple today. If that makes any sense. It's just, it's like going back to the way BotCon used to be run. I would love to go back and have them do an old BotCon like John and Carl, where we got just one or two figures, we didn't know what they were, because you had a lot more excitement that way. But you can't do that now with this model. It's the same thing with you know, everyone is so, they want the information now, they want the video now, they don't want to have to hunt around for it, and I just miss those simpler times to a degree.
Yeah. I can agree with you with that because, I mean, there was times it's like, I mean, not me myself not being like really in that social community. When I went to the store, you know, back when RID first came out, my eyeballs about bulged out of my head. I'm like, oh my God, it's a Bruticus, you know, because it's stuff like that. You know, you remember it from a kid, but it's like, oh my God, I can't believe they brought this back. But that excitement, you know, honestly, me not being on the internet as much as as most people back then, I got excited about seeing that on the shelf or going to like you were saying, going to a BotCon convention. I mean, how many people think that, you know, they were ever going to come out with, you know, some of the breakdown they did, the G2 breakdown? Nobody knew anything about this thing, you know, and then all of a sudden here it is. Everybody's like, oh my God, you know, it's the greatest thing since, you know, sliced bread. But it's like stuff like that you never knew even existed. And myself, you know, throughout the years of collecting and stuff like that, I've learned that there's certain things that were non-existent that need to come to play. There's some things that were in prototype stage, but that's as far as it got. We got stuff that, you know, every time we turn around, you got a new picture of something that comes out. It doesn't matter if it's an independent toy or something. It's very difficult to not have something like that released to the public unless you literally don't ever take photos or anything or do anything whatsoever to put it out there, and then you just show up with it.
You know, I think you summed it up. you summed it up perfectly. I miss being surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
completely
what-
agree with you
even
with that.
even in the early days, I mean, sometimes you didn't find out anything about stuff until like just a few months before it was released. I know RID, where it was um, a late decision to to cancel Trans Tech and go with RID before they went into Armada. You really, if unless you've been following car robots, I mean, you didn't know what RID was. Fortunately,
or imported all the toys from Japan because you thought they would never come over.
I actually had a Super Speedbreaker, the red Cyburn. I actually had one about 4 months before they actually hit the shelves, and at the time that I bought it, because news didn't get out quite as quickly as it does now. At the time, I didn't know that RID was coming here and we were going to get these molds.
Well,
And
none of us knew that.
Yeah, I paid $24 for a Super Speedbreaker from. Does anybody remember back in the day? BBTS had $4 flat rate shipping.
Yes.
That
Yes.
was so awesome. I mean, that right there, I would kill to have today on anything. I mean, maybe we can talk to Orson of Captured Prey and see. I don't think he'd fly with it, but yeah.
We knew Red was coming. We knew it was coming. In fact, I kept going to stores looking for it. I was, I think, either the first or second person on the internet at the time to actually report finding it. Of course, the internet was much smaller then, and you could be the first person to find. I mean, like several times, I was the first person to report something, but we knew that was on the way. We didn't know. We didn't have a long, period of warning, but we knew that was coming.
Yeah. Well, I remember going down to BotCon 2001 in Durham, Brian, and I stopped at the Walmart in Burlington, and I saw for the first time the RID version of Prime and Magnus, and took them to show them off.
At BotCon, yeah, I found it. I found them not long before BotCon that year.
So, but like Plastic Concept, I think it's just a matter for me. I miss being surprised by stuff because you're not surprised. You're surprised when you see a store restock something for the first time in 6 months. It's not the same.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly talk about my first exposure to the internet and the Transformers fandom here briefly, and then we're going to play a message from our sponsors, and it'll be about a 2-minute break. So once I'm done here, we can mute our mics. I'll play that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the major splits and major flame wars that happened on back in the day, and then we'll talk about where we are now and how we got to where we are. But me, like I said, I started out at Bot Talk. I lurked a little bit on ATT, but I only was on Bot Talk maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And at the same time, toward the end of my Bot Talk days, I had gravitated over to another website that was a very simple website, simple HTML, but you could go on there and actually read comic book scans of the original Marvel comics, and it was transfans.com. Now, transfans.com no longer exists as transfans.com. It's now transfans.co.uk. And is primarily a British and European board, but there are some people that are from the Americas and Canada on there. But at the time, trans fans was a growing community because a lot of people would go to trans fans, read the comic book scans. There was some Transformer news on there. It wasn't really fast for it unless you went to the message board. The message board was really hot. There was hundreds of members at the time, and at the time hundreds of members was a lot. I mean, you didn't have the tens of thousands that you would have like on Trans Fans or Sabertron or anything like you do today. Back then, the members list down at the bottom of the screen read maybe 1,000 people, and to me at that time it was huge. And I honestly, in my small-mindedness as a collector, I didn't see a lot of people posting from Kentucky on the boards, and I actually thought at one time in the early 2000s, in the 01, 02 range, that I was probably the only person in Kentucky that still collected Transformers and even remembered what they were. Little did I know that there was a Brett and an Orson from Capture Prey here, but at the time, those guys weren't talking on the boards, or at least I wasn't seeing them. And the closest people I was seeing was in larger cities like Chicago and New York and L.A. And here I was in backwoods Kentucky, and I've got this huge, massive Transformers collection. I really didn't know, but the internet grew really, really quick, and more people came on. I met Insane Galvatron at Trans Fans when I was actually a moderator there. I'm posted there as Weird Wolf and Monzo for the longest time, and whenever I was a mod there, we became friends, and now he's part of this show, and you meet friends and stuff through these message boards, and I have gotten to know some of the best people through the internet and through this fandom. It's really amazing. But I'm going to break it off right there, and we're going to take about a 2.5-minute break. We're going to play a message from our sponsors, and we will see you on the flip side.
CapturedPrey.com. Great toys, great prices, great service. Visit www.CapturedPrey.com for all your import, Transformers, and third-party figure needs. And save even more through the Captured Prey loyalty program. CapturedPrey.com. Mega Toy Fan. Look for Mega Toy Fan at popular toy conventions like BotCon and TFCon, as well as on Facebook at facebook.com/mega.toyfan. Join up on our forums at tftalk.net. Discuss the podcast with the cast of the show. Talk about Transformers and Super Robot Mecha, or just talk about whatever is on your mind. Visit tftalk.net or tfylp.com today. TFYLP is also on Twitter at TFYLP. The TFYLP Twitter is the one place where you can find out the latest information on the show, as well as directly contact us about the show. Follow at TFYLP today. Join the TFYLP Facebook group, where hundreds of fans talk about the show, or you can buy, sell, or trade your Transformers figures with fellow members. Visit facebook.com/groups/TFYLP and ask to join today. You can now find TFYLP on Stitcher Radio. Stitcher Radio is a free app available for the iOS, Android, and Nook platform, with over 20,000 shows to discover. With Stitcher Radio, you can create your own custom playlist, and is always on demand and always on the go. Listen in to TFYLP on Stitcher Radio today, and please rate us. Tell other fans that you heard TFYLP on Stitcher Radio. TFYLP is available for download via the iTunes podcast directory, Double Twist on the Android platform, as well as from our website at tfylp.com.
And we are back. We are talking about Transformers fans and the internet. We have talked about ATT and some of our first experiences on the internet, but there are, if you've been around for any length of time on the Transformers message boards and talked to other Transformer fans, the fandom on the internet has not been without its grief and strife. There's been a lot. Like we talked about earlier, bigbot.com with Bot Talk, the forums there. To say that it was a pleasant atmosphere is not exactly accurate, although I cannot say that it was a terrible place to be. I loved my time at BotCon. It's just that I saw a lot of people had some issues with admin there, and he was very vocal about it to an extent, but whenever he did things, you really didn't know why. Like whenever I got banned, I never knew why, and I still don't to this day, 15 years later. Then there's also the Flame Wars. Anybody remember some of the first major Flame Wars that would go on between not just fans but message boards and communities online? Any remember those?
Like between websites or like between fans? They're huge flame. Yeah, I mean, they're websites that still don't talk to each other today, or people that associate with website A, instead of website B.
Yeah.
It had the exact same content, but they hate each other and they don't know why.
Exactly, and it's one of the things, like Brian and I were talking. Back whenever, I guess it was around the time we met at Shardicon, how there's some podcasts out there that won't even mention other podcasts, and I don't know why. We're all part of the same fandom. Why not mention them? I've had people from different podcasts on this show. I mean, you guys do RFC, and I've had Optimus 420 SL on here. And we have Proto Man, who has been on WTF at TFW. I mean, there's no reason for people
to mention. We've actually had Brian Johnson. He's a stop motion guy.
Yeah.
From the Ground Bridge, and I personally am on the Ground Bridge sometimes myself, and I agree with you. I don't understand this hostility. It's silly. I mean, we're all part of the same fandom. We all like the same kind of plastic. Although we don't like some of the same genres, that shouldn't matter. There shouldn't be this flame war. Stupid.
Yeah. And I just, it's just, to me, it's just nonsensical. But the fact remains that it's out there. And I do remember that whenever, and it was ironic that whenever I was at Bot Talk, people were dissing people over at Trans Fans, and people at Trans Fans were dissing people over at Bot Talk, and that's how I found out about Trans Fans, because I saw people talking bad about the people that posted. Okay, I had some knockoffs fall over, but I saw some.
Can we say the knockoffs were knocking it off?
Yeah. I saw some people talking about Trans Fans, and I'm like, well, what is this Trans Fans? And that's whenever I went, and I'm like, hey, this place is kind of cool, actually. And I started posting on the forums because, to me, I didn't care why people hated each other on different boards. It just seemed like artificial strife. It is not necessary. And of course, everything that was being communicated was petty. They're nothing but a bunch of Beast Wars lovers over there, and all they like is G1, or they do nothing but comics and cartoons all the way. Who cares? We all love the fandom. We all love the same things. We just have our different favorite parts. And to lump everybody into one big, stereotype is crazy, especially when some of the people were the same people that were posting on your board going over there and posting. And it was silly, and there was also some fun play between some websites. I know Trans Fans. Whenever I was a mod, there was TF Archive. There was some banter that went on back and forth between those, and I was actually a member of that board too. I actually posted on it here a few months back. Just out of some nostalgia, I went back and to see if any of the old people that I used to see posting was still around, and they are. They're still there. So if anybody from TF Archive and trans fans is still listening or is listening to this show, hello from Weird Wolf, and I haven't forgotten about you. Just don't get around that much. Anybody have any similar stories or any thoughts on the flame wars between boards and any topics that caused flame wars?
I
I'll
don't
be
know.
honest.
There's times that there's times that I see, because being part of more than one cast, I've noticed that a lot of these cast guys, they go to different websites. They don't all just go to TFW 2005. They don't all go to TFTalk.net. And they don't all go to Cybertron.com and all the rest of these. They tend to mix it up, and that's where they get their information. They're pulling it from one to the other to the other. Now, the sponsored podcasts for all these guys, I understand we're all kind of in a competition, but really, who are we competing with? We're all trying to do the same kind of cause. And honestly, to me, it's like some people don't like somebody else because of some thing they do or what they're into. Myself, I'm really into Generation 2. So there's some people out there who's like, oh, I hate Plasticon because he's all G2. It doesn't matter. Because to me, it's like, you like what you're going to like and you're going to hate what you hate. There's some people out there that don't like Brave. There's some people out there that don't like Beast Wars. I'm not one of those kind of guys. I'm not really that biased about the stuff. It's just, I think the community itself needs to kind of lose that chip on their shoulder and just get along, because we're all
That
in
will
this
never
for
happen,
the
honestly.
same.
That'll never
happen.
Oh,
Well,
we all just need a hug, man.
yeah. Well, not dragging in another fandom, but if anybody follows games, you've heard what's happening over in the gaming community right now,
Yeah.
and that's just absolutely uncalled for.
Well, I
And
can tell you what right now. I do play World of Warcraft. I was knocked off because of that whole lizard squad and what they're trying to do. But honestly, I don't think it's just because they're attacking the gaming community. I think it's going to be more than that, because they're really trying to mess with everybody's websites and everybody's online communication and gaming and all this stuff that's going on. So I don't think it's just that, because these guys that are doing this are actually getting paid to do this, and it's not cool. It's just not cool. I don't care who you are. It's just not cool, because you're a trend that's going to go away, and 5 years from now, nobody's going to care that you even existed. So, put her off.
Back on top, Don, you had something that you were going to say a moment ago.
I was just going to say, I remember when Trans Fandom split. I had just started there, so I don't know the whole. Even to this day, I don't know the whole story for behind the split. I just know
I was there, and I don't remember why it happened.
Well, Brian, do you know Brian?
I could text Rob right now and ask him. Rob is on the staff.
Staff?
Yeah, for that. So.
Because I remember going in there one day, and there was a notification about how this part of the content was now over at this site, and this part of the content was now over here, and I just stayed where I was because I had most everybody I knew was still on this site, which was the regular Trans Fandom. So, and the other side, I went there to look at some stuff and listen to the clips and whatever the case may be. But it never concerned me enough to find out why the split, because the people that I knew were still there.
I mean, if you want to know, go read Animal Farm, and that'll pretty much tell you.
Oh,
Animal Farm.
Yeah. And I had a paper on that back in the day.
Well,
no, thank you.
I mean, there's always been something that's been kind of pressing me, because I know we've got Facebook to be able to share stuff with, and there's like tons of groups, but I'm really curious. I wonder if anybody, this is kind of almost like a shout out to Google, because I know a lot of Google guys out there. You guys are nerds and geeks and stuff, and I'm sure you're into these kind of fandom things. Why hasn't there been just a centralized search engine specifically for just action figures alone, like Transformers, like G.I. Joe? So that way it brings all these communities into one big pipeline and kind of bottlenecks it all in.
What do you mean, like TNI?
Well, I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to have an entire thing that you just go to and there's everything instead of, oh, I got to go to this website, this website, this website, this website. I mean, as much as we love our websites, they're kind of a thing of the past.
Well,
Everybody
isn't
uses
that
social
primarily
media.
what Toy News International does?
Sort of, but I mean, they don't do kind of like what Facebook does, you know, because you can get on Facebook and everybody's trolling and just dropping stuff left and right. Oh, this has come out, this came out, this came out. You click on it, it's this site. Oh, it's over at this site. It's over at this site. It's almost like a big pipeline, which would be really cool if there specifically was one for, you know, maybe Transformer collectors or just mecha collectors in general that get into Transformers and, you know, Super Robot Shogogan and all this stuff, because it'd be really interesting to see the demographics of how crazy it could get, because you really wouldn't be stepping on each other's toes there. You would just be looking for, like, interesting stuff. Like, you know, be like, oh, I never knew that this toy had this. I didn't know it was designed for this, but it came out as this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that a lot of us are really into anyway as a toy collecting community, but also as a anime watching community. It would actually bring in a little bit of that, which would be interesting. I think it'd be cool if somebody out there that's smart enough to design a site that literally pipelines all those search engines into one, kind of like Google. Because that's exactly what Google does.
That's what Google does. Or, if you're looking for news, you can do that with Feedly as long as there's an RSS. You can just put it all into one.
Well, that's part of one of the things that I want to do with TF Talk is, and if you remember, whenever we first started up TF Talk about this time last year, the whole idea behind the website is a Transformers first and foremost, but also a Super Robot Mecha fan base and media thing, and ultimately that's what I want TF Talk to be as its webmaster. Is if you want to know about Transformers, if you want to know about GoBots, if you want to know about Brave or Chogokin or anything like that,
Diaclone, you got to put in Diaclone, everything.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. But right now, I personally don't have all the resources for that, and I'm looking for people that would be willing to help me with that. And guys, if there's anybody out there that wants to help work on the actual website, you know, shoot me a message and we can talk about it. But back to the split with Trans Fandom and TFW 2005. It is. If I recall correctly, Trans Fandom was the main website, and TFW 2005 was essentially the message board for Trans Fandom. Was it not? Is that pretty much the way it worked? And there's.
Well, I remember that after the split, all the media that he had worked on creating for the site, the soundtrack, the G1 background music, all that stuff went over. Not at Trans Fandom anymore.
Tony Bacala.
Yeah, that thing. That was his name. Thank you, Brian. I was blanking on it. So I know the media went away from Trans Fandom, but that again, that's all I can. That's the main thing that sticks out in my head is what went where, but not
back
anything.
Back in the day when he was launching TFW 2005, he used to send me his music and ask me to play it on RFC. So, and basically tell people, hey, if you want more of this, go to TFW 2005. But I really didn't get any more into it than that because I really didn't care, to be honest. I didn't really want to play his music because I didn't so much care for it.
Yeah, that's. Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
I mean, while some of it was neat and the fact that it was Transformer related, I liked it. But at the same time, it's not something that I actually sought out. It was just not my cup of tea. But you know, whenever I was there, I was a member. I joined up with TFW, or well, it was at the time Trans Fandom, around 2002, I believe, December of 2002. I lurked pretty much at the beginning, and I didn't really start hardcore posting until sometime in the middle of the year of 2003. And by that time, the split was well on, and like Don talked about earlier, the okay.
Fries are done.
Yeah, no, it's Facebook. I don't know why it's why it's talking.
Keep
But
going.
anyway, the split was on, and I really didn't know why things were happening. I hadn't been a part of any bad blood that was going on. I hadn't actually witnessed it, but I just know that there was something that went on that divided the two websites. Trans Fandom went off to itself, and TFW went off to become this massive, huge website that it is today. I still post there at least once or twice a day, only in maybe a couple of the forums. I don't post nearly as much on message boards as I used to, simply for the reason that a lot of the discussions, and this is something a lot of you may have witnessed as well, a lot of the discussions recirculate themselves over and over and over and over again. You know, and it goes back to another flame war point that we can talk about is anybody remember Truck versus Monkey?
Yes, I
Yeah.
I made a song about it.
Oh, really? You made a song?
I made a song about it. Yes, it was terrible, but
Do you have it? Or can you sing it?
no.
No.
So basically, it was a parody of the Tony Bacala stuff because
okay.
because he just had like acid music or something, which came free with PCs. He
Yeah.
just basically made a, he mixed the stuff together, which is all I did with that. It was called Truck Not Monkey. It was me over and over again, over a really crappy loop, saying Truck Not Monkey.
Oh my God, I remember that, Brian.
It was terrible, wasn't it?
Yes, I actually remember that now that you say it. I remember thinking, why can't this guy just like both shows?
Yeah, I know. I do. I did like both shows. It was not, but no.
I was dumb then, so.
But
Go ahead.
the Truck Not Monkey thing is when someone says Flame War, I think of the Flame War in Alt Toys Transformers that basically split Alt Toys Transformers with ATT-CM, which was Alt Toys Transformers Classics Moderated, which the thing that really split the fandom more than anything else has or ever will, because the fandom really existed in one place at that point, was Beast Wars. You either liked Beast Wars or you didn't, and literally the fandom split in two, like an amoeba. And
it remained that way for a number of years, actually.
It's never changed.
It honestly has never changed. I mean, you got guys out there like myself. I love the Beast Wars show, and I love Beast Machines.
Actually, I see a lot more people that are like you and like us. I'm a G1 fan through and through. I'm a G1er, but I also love Beast Wars. It was a great show. I loved it on television back in the day. Beast Machines, I had to warm up to it. I didn't like it when it first aired, but going back and reviewing it, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, a lot of the toys were kind of crap, like Night Scream and the Supreme Class Cheetor, but you had some gems in there. I mean, the Blast Punch Optimus Primal and a couple others. They were great toys. I loved them.
I mean, there are adults in the fandom now who got into Transformers by watching Armada. Which makes me sad. But when the Beast Wars kids started to come of age, I mean, that's when things started to shift. But I mean, the fandom split, and the fandom's never been in one place or had like total agreement or accord sense. Not that it was happy-go-lucky, everybody loved this and loved that, but for the most part, there was one thing to like, and if you didn't like it, you weren't a fan. So I mean, we can't really process that now because there's so much more Transformers back then there was back then, which was G1, G2, Japanese stuff. That was
Well, it's demographics. That's what it all boils down to. You got the guys that grew up with Beast Wars and they thought it was the best thing in the world, and you got guys that grew up with the Armada and they thought it was cool. And you got us that grew up during G1 and then saw the rerun cartoons for Generation 2 toys that came out. And that's the thing is the demographics have changed so much throughout the years. You're going to have people that are so stuck on the old stuff because it's like, okay, I like Beast Wars. Why do you like Beast Wars? Because I grew up with it. Because I had that toy when I was a kid.
Exactly.
I didn't have Generation 1 Optimus Prime. I had this. And that's what they'll say. They'll tell you this.
We only have to look as far as our own cast. I mean, Sideburn 2, Mirai Baby, Natsume Ryu, they all grew up. I mean, to them, Armada, RID, Beast Wars, that was their G1.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Every show is someone's G1.
Yeah. And today I think the fandom has grown to the point now where, yeah, we still have those divisions. There's some hardcore G1ers out there that absolutely detest anything Beast, and then you have the hardcore Beast lovers out there that detest anything that is blocky and has no posability. But the thing is that now, with all these years that have passed and those younger generations that came on during Beast Wars and Beast Machines and all the way up through the Armada trilogy, they're getting into adulthood now where they are spending money and are actual collectors. And like we just said, those eras were their G1, and that's what they're nostalgic for. So now, today, yes, we still have those divisions, but the line is more blurred because of just the age difference. I mean, not everybody is an old man like each one of us. I mean, like I said, this podcast in and of itself.
Speak for yourself. I'm still 12.
Yeah, I'm talking actual age here. But I mean, this podcast. I mean, I'm almost 40. Megamus is 60 or 70, and and then we have Sideburn and Natsume and them. They're in their early to mid 20s. So we have great diversity even on this show, but it represents the fandom in my opinion, because that's what we have today on these message boards. You don't know now. I mean, back in the day, back in Bot Talk and the early trans fandom days, most of the people that you saw posting on message boards were, I'd say, 80 to 90% G1 fans or G2 or early Beast Wars. But now you don't know if that person that you're talking to on the forums is a 12-year-old kid that's still playing with Transformers for the first time, and his first exposure was Revenge of the Fallen, or if it's somebody that started back in Beast Wars or G.I. Joe, or not G.I. Joe, but G1. So it's the fandom is more diverse now than it ever has been. And I mean, when you see websites exploding out to where you have tens of thousands of members on forums, that's a testament to where the fandom has come to.
That's absolutely true. I mean, and it's split to the point that it's not just Hasbro Takara toys; it's indie toys, and people get into the indie fandom and the IDW comics versus the Marvel comics. You got guys that even get into that aspect too. That's even in this fandom. You got the guys that just like the Bayverse. You got guys that like the stuff that's just strictly cartoon.
Honestly,
There's
I think
so many people in this.
The closest thing that we can come to in today's Transformers fandom on the internet, the closest thing, if you're a young Transformer fan, or like Sideburn and the crew that are now adults and collecting Transformers, and they didn't really experience the Beast Wars versus G1 truck versus monkey tug of war that happened back in the early days of the Transformers fandom on the internet. The closest thing that I see to it today is official Hasbro Takara product versus third party. the third party element has been added in that we've never had that before. I mean, we've had customs, but never on the level of third party products. But you have people that are diehard. Oh, I will only buy official product, and then you got people that are, hey, third party is awesome. Screw this official stuff. It's crap. It's hollow. I want third party. And then you got people like me that, you know, if I like it, I'm going to buy it. But there's more of a hard a divisive line today between third party and official product, and it represents a lot of what we saw back in the day. And I foresee 5-10 years down the line, whenever third party stuff is either still around because it's still doing really well, or Hasbro somehow cracks down on it and nixes it all. If it's still around, it's just going to be part of the mix again. That's what I see.
And this actually went into the conversation I had before, is what is going to be remembered 20 years from now? Hasbro, Takara, or they'd say it, Fans Project, one of the biggest guys out there. I don't think there's going to be, there's going to be some, but honestly, I don't see that diversity of the fandom of just indie toys alone be able to carry the torch for every one of these companies, because it seems like every time we turn around, we got a new indie toy company.
Well,
we were probably banking pretty close to 100 indie toy companies now that are putting out product that's similar to Transformers.
Well, let's be real here, though.
That's the demographics, and that's the truth of it all.
Well, let's be real here, though. Something that we've seen now more and more over the last several years. I want to say at least the last 5 years. I've been seeing more and more of a mass exodus of older Transformer fans, like us, most of us here on the show tonight, that are G1 fans. A lot of people are either completing their collection of G1 and they're done. You know, they don't want to collect anything more. They're done. And then you got some people that are, you know, I've been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years now. I'm tired of it. I want to stop and move on with my life. And they're getting out of the hobby. You know, and they're selling off their collections, and they're calling up Brett and saying, hey, you know, come buy me out. You know,
absolutely.
And, you know,
we are there for a reason.
But you know, and Brett, I'm sure you've seen it. You know, more and more. There's people that said, you know, hey, I'm done with this, and they call you up and say, come get everything I've got. You know,
well, I think one of the defining moments, Weird Wolf, is when John and Carl Hartman sold their collection.
Yeah,
because these guys were the
fandom.
They were the fandom giving a personification. That they were Transformer fans who took their love to the next step for the product, did the conventions, became wildly popular, and then in 2004, 2005, through that time period, they said, we're done. We need to move on. And that was a defining moment for me, just in the fact that sooner or later that's what happened to all of us.
Well, I definitely wasn't ready to have this discussion. But yes, that was one point, but I wouldn't say that was a defining point, because you've had other people who have done the same thing. And I'll go ahead and say it. Chad tried to put on a good show, put everything into it, and did the exact same thing. Sold his collection, and is out of the fandom for the most part. I mean, he still collects for his kids. But what I'm saying is I wouldn't say one person in particular, but everyone. And even with what I do, and it could be detrimental to say this, but I'll stand behind it. Everyone at some time is going to sell their collection. If it's because you don't want to leave it for your loved ones, you're sick of it, financial responsibility, whatever. It's going to happen. Everyone is going to sell because no one lives forever. Sorry, everyone who thinks that they're Superman and immortal. Eventually, you're going to sell for one of those reasons. And I'm going to say that whatever your reason is, it's justified. Don't look at it as what other people have done. Look at it for your reason. Is it, the thing I would hate is someone saying, I'm done, I'm sick of the fandom, take this, and then it happens, and then a month later they go, man, I regret that. Don't regret that. Make sure it's the decision you want. That's all I have to say about that.
And we've talked about it before. If you can restructure your collection. I mean, hell, I had over 2,000 toys. I had over 2,000 Transformers at one time. Now everything I've got's right back here in these 4 cases, and it's not very much, but I'm proud of it, and I get what I can. I'm not where I was. And you mentioned Chad earlier, and he may listen to this at a later date, but I talk to him almost on a nightly basis because he and I work the same shift. We do a very similar job. We talk almost on a nightly basis. I still stay in touch with Chad, and we actually had this discussion the other night about the fandom, because I talked to him about this subject that we were talking about that we're talking about tonight, and he weighed in on it, and he said, there is nothing that he can think of that he really hasn't done in this fandom. He said at the height of his collection, he had about 3,000 Transformers, and he said, he had virtually everything loose and sealed, and he said if it said Transformers on the package, he bought it. And if you stop and think that he's been a collector, a fan, he's ran a convention, he's been on a podcast, what more can the man do that's in the fandom? But and I must state, he still is a fan. He still is a fan. He still collects an occasional masterpiece. But, there's not all that many masterpieces. There's, 15, 20 of original molds. So his collection's not all that big, and he's pretty much, he doesn't follow the fandom. I'm basically his source of news. He'll just about every night he'll ask me, so what's new in the fandom? He doesn't even care to get on the forums anymore. He hasn't posted in months, but he still stays in touch. But he's that type of fan now. He's done it all. He has no real desire to go out and reacquire everything that he once had. Nor do I. Everything that I've sold, I've never sold off completely. I may go back and pick up a figure or two that I once loved, but I'm not going to go out and get entire lines that I once had. I'm like, oh man, I really regret selling the entire Armada line.
No one's ever said that.
I don't think anyone has ever said that.
No. But I just
side swipes in the universe to make me want to do that.
I'm sorry, but that one was too easy. I'm sorry.
So what Megama said a few minutes ago about no one lives forever, the older I get, the more I realize that. And Don and I both right now have toys that belong to our friend JD in our homes. Yeah. And, we've had to go through that and piece through that and figure out, what goes with what and who goes with who. And I have no desire to leave that to somebody else.
Yeah, and for me, it's doubly important because I lost my mom in 2012 to a heart attack that was unexpected, as they usually are, and my dad passed away from cancer in 2008. I have no brothers and sisters. I have a cat that randomly attacks me. I have aunts and cousins. There is no one in my circle of friends that can handle the responsibility that I have of this collection. And, JD's death really put a lot of this into focus for me, that I've got to start thinking of the future on leaving what I'm going to do when I leave this mortal coil. And, it's just, this sort of rolls into what we're talking about as far as how the internet has evolved, how our relationships have evolved, how websites have evolved, and how we as collectors are still evolving when we get to the point that, okay, I've got to stop. And I mean that, me personally, I do have to stop. I haven't, obviously, because I have pre-orders in at 3 different places, but it's just
It's difficult. It really is.
difficult.
I mean,
Well, think about like myself. I've been trying to get my 7-year-old. He really likes Transformers, but he's interested in all different kinds of stuff. So I don't know how he's going to take it when he gets older. But my 1-year-old, I'm still working on him. When I get older, hopefully they're going to enjoy the stuff that I enjoyed, and they might understand it, but I don't think they're going to quite grasp the collecting like I do, and why I love it so much. I mean, the thing is I went just as far as to decorate my car to look like Generation 1 Wheeljack. So, I mean, I'm a fanboy to a diehard. That's what I am. But my whole thing is, like, I don't know. These younger generations, they don't play with toys like most kids do, when we were kids. They don't do any of that, and now it's almost going to be a niche kind of market, and you're absolutely right. Some of us will end up having to sell out and get rid of some of this stuff when we get to that point, but myself, I plan on collecting until I get my full Generation 1 and full Generation 2, because to me, that is my holy grail. Some people say one robot is, but mine is the entire collection all in general, which is very difficult to do. I want to get all Diaclone too if I can, but it's just something I like to do. It's fun. It's a hobby. Great to play
let me
with,
see something.
but I don't know what these kids are going to think of this stuff that we don't.
Those goals are obtainable, and then you will progress to something else. I guarantee that's what you'll do. You will progress to something else.
Well, that's true.
Until you stop.
Well, with me also being a filmmaker and enjoying movies, that's the thing. I personally think this is a long-term kind of thing, trying to finish out the entire collection. That's something I'm going to continue to do, but primarily what I'm going to be more or less focused on is filmmaking skills, stuff like that kind of stuff. Because to me, when this is kind of depressing, but when I'm gone or whatever, I want the world to know who I was and what I did and how I enjoyed life and what I had to give. Being an artist is one of the hardest things to do in the world, especially nowadays that everything is digitally based and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like when an artist died back in the 1800s, and somebody discovers their painting and now it's in a museum worth millions of dollars. It's very difficult to attain stuff like that nowadays because of everything being digital. Myself, I'm hoping that any of the custom work I do and any of the movies I make and some of the props and stuff like that, maybe that one day will actually, leave a cornerstone in the world that I actually made an impact as well, because that's just my outlook on life. I want to have some kind of impact that's positive, because I don't want the people to think, oh well, that Jason Walston or Plasticon, he was a joke. He just he did this. Everybody in the world wants to have their mark left, but you've got to do what you got to do to make sure that mark somehow gets in the hands of somebody that it's going to mean something to.
Well,
if you don't, then it's not going to mean anything. Collecting robots is one thing, but what you leave with that is what really matters.
I've got a rather unique, well, not unique. I mean, a lot of people have similar experiences and everything, but like Don was mentioning earlier about the Mortal Coil, many listeners remember my accident last year that nearly cost me my life. And for those of you who don't know, my my daytime job, not daytime, I work at night, but I drive a semi. And last year, I took all 18 wheels off of a bridge. And my partner and I nearly died. And for nearly a year, I really had a lot of time to think. And Transformers kept me based and something to diverge my attention from. But it's a thing that I really look at objectively now. There's things that are so much more important to me, like my family and their well-being and stuff. And I look at it, and then I look at toys, and I'm like, oh, I want that toy, and I'm like, but I want my family to be happy more. And if I'd be gone now, where would they be? These toys mean nothing to my wife, and they mean nothing to my stepkids, and nobody in my family cares about them. So I really, it's hard for me to talk about, but I mean, I do see an end to my collecting, not to my fandom. I want to stress that, not to my fandom. I will always love Transformers because they have a special place in my heart. They remind me of that simple, worryless time in my childhood, and they're always a constant reminder. And daggone, they're just cool to pick up and fiddle with. But I'm in a very small room. This office that I have is very small, and I have very limited display space, and I can't display a whole lot of figures. And why now I'm going after figures that I want, and I intend to keep in my collection until I'm gone. And whenever I'm gone, whatever happens to them, happens to them. I hope somebody that I know in the fandom would take them, because there'll probably be less than a couple hundred of them total. But I would hope somebody would take them and do something good with them, and maybe give all the money to a charity or something. I don't know. Do something good with them, and that would be my mark. But I'm not concerned on my mark on the fandom right now. I do it as a hobby. It's something that I like. And to bring it back into our discussion of how the internet affects us as collectors now today. In this day and age, whenever we get so much information so quickly, and it's easy to get caught up in that gotta catch them all mentality, like back in Armada. They really stress that with all those mini-cons. You gotta catch all those mini-cons. It's a Pokemon, Pokeformers. But if you look at the fandom as a whole, all Transformers are like that. You gotta get them all. I mean, there's not a day goes by that I don't see a Transformer I wish I could have. But then you gotta sit and dwell on it and think, do I want it? Do I really want it that bad? And sometimes I'll even get a figure, and not because I hate it, not because it's a bad figure or anything, but I might sit and think, and I'm like, this figure just doesn't really fit in what I'm doing. And through the fandom that's on the internet today, like Facebook or Facebook group, it's easy to quickly turn over a figure. If you pick up a figure and you don't like it, throw it up on the Facebook group, and it can go quickly. It's speed is what the internet has brought the fandom. The speed in which we acquire things and can unacquire things in our hobby, the speed in which we find out about new things. I mean, we've known about Masterpiece Wheeljack for, over a year now, and he's still not out, although he should be out next month. But we had so much lead time. We see these prototypes. We can get a hold of prototypes a lot easier now than we could back in the days of ATT and Bot Talk. But where's the fandom going today? To me, personally, I'll just continue using the fandom. And I think once I'm done collecting, there will be a point, I'd say, within the next several years, that I will be able to say, as a collector, I'm done. I'm not going to get any more. I don't care how awesome it is. I'm done because I don't have the space for it, and I have the figures that I want. But I'll still be a fan, and I'll still follow, and I still want to continue this podcast, and I still want to continue the website and everything because I'm a fan. I keep interest in it. But how will the internet affect you as a collector and a fan of this hobby of ours? That's the question I'm posting out there to our listeners. How does it affect you? And how has it affected you, and how will it affect you? And before we wrap here, I want to quick ask everybody, how do you think that that the internet will affect you, and how do you see yourself wrapping up in this fandom? Brian, let's hear from you real quick.
For me?
Yeah.
I think I've done pretty much all I can do, so internet's not really going to do much more for me. No, like, no joke. Seriously, I'm pretty much... I don't think I can do much else.
Do you see yourself collecting much longer as a collector?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably end up binging and purging like I've been doing over the last 10 years of toys. But, I mean, I try to pare down to the stuff that I really want to keep, then I just start buying all the new crap that comes out. Then I repeat that cycle over and over again. You know, actually, talking about this kind of makes me want to withdraw from the fandom so that I can actually be excited about what's on the shelf and find stuff and not know about it. So I'm kind of depressed now. Thanks.
Sorry.
I mean, like, really, I mean, other than, I mean, the internet for me, the fandom at this point is almost, I hate to say this, but it's almost just become fodder for the podcast. I basically I cram all the news and everything I can for a day or two so that I'm up to date for the podcast. Then I pretty much sort of decompress and try to live my normal life the rest of the week. I mean, as a teenager, in an early 20-something, when I was in the fandom, I was obsessed with Transformers. Now I'm pretty much obsessed with,
Life.
It's actually it's not that bad. It's actually kind of awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're kind of like me in that that you're a fan. You were a hardcore fan, but now you're more of an outside fringe fan, and life has more appeal to you. Is that the way I'm understanding?
I would say that, relatively speaking, I'm still pretty hardcore. I mean, compared to 99.5% of the fans out there. But compared to most of my friends and people I associate with, yeah, I'm absolutely compared to most of the people in my circle. I'm on the fringe.
Don, how about you?
I'll be honest, I really don't know, because for the longest time after Mom died, I was trying to get everything in order down there with her estate and everything. And I thought once all that was done, then I could focus on all my stuff. But I keep finding myself, putting off making these decisions, and I just don't want to be, in a situation that, what happened to JD. He passed away unexpectedly, and then Amanda was just overwhelmed with his collection. And I don't want to do that to anybody as well. So I don't, as far as the internet and me, I really can't say right now. I don't know if I'll be collecting I would like to say by the time I'm 50, which is another 6 years, I would have sold what I wanted to sell. I would have kept what I want to keep, and I'll still be in it, but like Brian, more along the fringes, having said, okay, I've been doing this for 35 plus years. It's time to move on. But and then I realized there's so much awesome stuff.
It's hard. It really is.
So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to wind up being. It's out there in the ether. I don't know.
What about you, Brett? I know you got your mouth full, but
Mouth's always
I
full.
knew you would pick. Right when I took a bite.
Yep.
Dang it. Couldn't help it. I had to eat. Damn it. But going back to what I said before.
you might want to move your mic down because you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you.
All right. Going back to what I was saying before, I would not want to leave all this crap for someone else to categorize, organize, figure out, get rid of, whatever. So, yes, I would get rid of it before that time. Do I think it's anytime soon? I hope not. So, I'm going to be in it for a while. And I actually see myself getting rid of more toys and interacting more with the people that are coming into it. And that's kind of the handoff, in my opinion. I'll still be in the community, but it'd be more towards sitting back watching, maybe giving a little piece of advice, and maybe, schooling the new generation coming in. Because to keep the community going, and we are a community, be it
that's why we're here.
kind of obscure and geeky, we have to look out for each other, and we really do. And sometimes you got to look at people that have been in it for a while and go, hey, does this sound goofy, or should I do this, or what do you think? That's where I'll be. Maybe I won't be the guy out there buying all the masterpieces and helping fund Hasbro into the big conglomerate that it is, but I'll help the community. If you guys get my drift that way.
I totally get it. Yeah. What about you, Plasticon?
I mean, honestly, myself, I've been, like I said, I've been collecting for years, well before I even, I would say my collecting really started picking up when I got married for the second time, and now I'm with my third girl, and, third steady, put it that way. And then I've got kids and everything, too, and my whole thing is when, time comes, I want my kids to be able to either enjoy what I have or somehow profit off of it. Considering most of the stuff that, I'm a lot like Brett. I've got a lot of vintage stuff that's very, very, very expensive, and it will sell for a lot of money, especially in 20, 30 years from now. And myself, I'm going to be a die-hard fan to the day I die. That's there's no doubt about that. But I also want, like I said, I want my family and my friends and the community to be able to profit off of just even my filmmaking or anything I produce to put out there. I mean, I might be a Transformer fan, but I'm also a gamer. I'm also a movie fanatic. I'm just like every one of you guys out there. I enjoy it. I enjoy life. I enjoy life experiences. And I wouldn't trade any of these experiences for anything. It seems like about every Transformer that I received, like at a convention or went to like a comic store or just found them at a flea market or something like that, I have some kind of experience that came with that, some kind of connection. And I don't think enough people really realize that when they go out to go purchase something. They don't stand there, and talk to the person they're buying it off of. Most of the time they're like, oh, here's the money, and they leave. Because they think, oh my God, I'm getting this thing cheap. Well, sometimes if you have a conversation with some of these people, they leave an impact on you, And that's probably the biggest thing I can, tell everybody in the community, I don't care if you hate somebody or whatever it is. It's like you're leaving impacts on somebody else within that community. You should cherish some of these impacts you get. Although some of this stuff might just be through video or through message board, or, you know, you call them up on Skype or whatever. But when you meet some of these guys in person at the conventions, spend a little bit of time with them, kind of pick their brains, see what they're really all about, other than just the plastic that they're collecting. You know, that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand. There's more to it than that. Myself, I see myself as an artist. You know, a lot of you guys seen a lot of custom work I do. I'm an artist. I'm not just a toy collector or a customizer. I'm an artist. So it's a complete different genre for me. I probably put more heart into something than most people would. But not saying that our guys don't do that, but, you know, a little bit of me goes into every single solitary thing I do. And to me, that's what life's about. And if it gets to the point that you have to sell your collection, sell your collection. But don't regret it. Don't have, you know, remorse for doing something like that, and don't cause yourself to become depressed if you have to. If you have to, you have to. You know, part of life.
I do want to say though, before we wrap up here, you know, the fandom on the internet has grown older, has gotten wiser in some ways. I do want to preface that. The internet has changed us in a way that now, as an older collector, I don't feel the overwhelming drive to go out and get that next new figure. I mean, I do have the want. I do still go out and search, but the way I used to, I mean, it's like every other day I was going out back in the back whenever I first got back into collecting. I was going out and hitting every Walmart, Toys R Us, Target that I could, looking for the next new figure. And now, like Brett was saying, I think it's important that we do what we're doing right now here on this podcast, and that's you know, helping talk about our hobby and nurture the people that are just coming into it, or about where we were 10 years ago, like the Sideburn 2s and the Natsumes. You know, they're where we were 10, 15 years ago. And it's our job as older collectors to nurture them. And, you know, a lot of podcasts have the same, you know, formula, in that a lot of podcasts talk about news and what's hot now, and that's great. And one of the things that I want to try to do, we do that here on TFYLP, but on other occasions we do a topic like this, and that's a topic where we talk to inform and give insight into where this what we do and how we think and how this hobby works, the machinations in this hobby. And the internet allows us to do that, allows us to do the podcasts, to be able to go on. I mean, I don't have a lot of money, but you can go on YouTube and see me every week, because I can do this right here in my own home. And 20 years ago, we couldn't do that. It was just a basic message board like ATT, you know, where it's just text and maybe a picture. But
Scanned
a lot has changed. Yeah, a lot of things have changed. I mean, it could be even farther back when there was no internet, and the only Transformers you saw was what Hasbro had out there, you know, in cartoon form on television. And a lot has changed, and it's going to change even more. But that's how I see the internet has changed us, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this show. I know we've ran really, really long, but I think it was a good topic, and what the fans were asking for. You know, they wanted to know the history of the Transformers fans on the internet, and I'm sure we missed a lot of stuff, and if we did, talk about it on the Facebook group. And I want to thank everybody that was blowing up that Facebook topic tonight. I know Brett was interacting with them, listening to this show and talking about things and commenting on things. That you are why we are here, and we thank you for that. Anybody else have any closing thoughts before we wrap? Nope. Brian, thank you for joining us on tonight's episode. Your insights were very helpful and welcome.
Thank you.
And Don, Megamus, Plasticon, thank you guys as usual. I do want to thank you listeners once again for listening in to another TFYLP, and be sure to subscribe and join us on Facebook and share us with your friends. We'll see you next time on TFYLP.
This has been Transformers for your listening pleasure, a presentation of TFTalk.net. We'd like to thank you for listening and ask that you please rate us on your favorite podcast outlet and share us with your friends. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at TFYLP. Email us at podcast@tfylp.com. This is Paul Light, and on behalf of TFYLP, we'd like to thank you again for listening. And we hope you'll join us next time for another TFYLP.